Our special session of Tuesday, July 12th is the session. First item is the agenda. Any alterations, additions to the agenda?
The only addition would be an exec session at the committee to discuss contract negotiations regarding the trail mark.
Okay, so we'll make that 1C, exec session for negotiations. Any other additions? Bruce?
Not an addition to the agenda, but if I could make just a quick public service announcement, very quick, literally.
Okay, hang on just a second.
Okay.
The agenda is approved then as modified. Now go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. I just want, and only by virtue of the fact that before if people are watching and have any interest in this, there's going to be a movie night at East Elementary School tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. This will be the second one they've done. They're going to be doing Toy Story 1, and it's basically outdoors, bring blankets, chairs, there's free popcorn and snow cones. I think the PTA and some church groups and the Northeast neighborhood group around East Elementary is sort of putting this together with the school itself. Greg Sumlin's the principal, and I guess they had a real good turnout. A couple hundred people showed up last time they did this a couple weeks ago, so it could be a lot of fun, assuming the weather cooperates.
There's supplying snorkels and...
Exactly, yeah. Swim fins.
Okay.
Swim fins are certainly optional.
All right.
Thank you.
Certainly. Judge Anderson.
Well, good evening. It seems like it was not that long ago that I met with the first quarterly report, and in fact, it wasn't that long ago because not realizing how quickly I had to get on the agenda, we actually were in May for January, February, March. So what I wanted to do this time was focus on this time since the first quarter, the second quarter of April, May, and June. I had our court administrator run the statistics for the end of June to give us both the month report as well as the year-to-date report, which I also provided the last time for the first 3 months. You'll notice one of the questions that was asked, or one of the things that council wanted us to do, and the court administrator did, was to add the percent change column on the far right. And I think the last time I was kind of giving some numbers because I've worked them out prior to coming in, and that is now included in here. So if you keep these or collect them or compare them, you'll see the differences as we go forward. The second quarter, in terms of the amount of work that was done by the court, you recall when I was here the last time in May, I told you that we were down in pretty much every category, and the cases that were being closed, disposed in other ways, warrants and all this were roughly equivalent in that there was about a 35% reduction from January through the end of March of the number of cases that was being filed by the police department. And I expected that would go up, and in fact that is what we see has happened. The numbers here in the second column for June, you see the total filings are within 110, it looks like, of the previous June, and that's about 90%, my math is correct, whereas before we were at about 65%. And then when you see that far right column, the percentage change, now this is an aggregate change, so it's talking about the period, the first 6 months of 2011 compared to the first 6 months of 2010. It's reduced by 27%, so it's down by 27%. But the last time we were down by 35%, so we've seen a substantial increase in the amount of cases that are flowing into the court, and that's bringing that number closer. It's not going to disappear unless we end up compensating for those first 3 months and having that many more filings than we originally had. The rest of the categories, and you have to kind of look at the bottom. For instance, if you look at that second, complaints closed with the parking, traffic, and general ordinance violations there, you actually need to kind of combine that with the one that's below it, because if you don't do those two, you don't get a picture of the actual cases closed by the court. There, the aggregate's down to about minus 32%. Again, that's closing the gap. There, at the bottom of court activity, it's down to minus 30. So again, we're closing the gap in pretty much each of these categories, minus 33 for the counter and mail-in, and minus 20 for the revenue. So everything has been coming up pretty proportionally as we've got an increase in the number of cases that are actually there. And I can break them down here. You can see the actual numbers. So for instance, the court activity first line for the month of June in 2010, 264 guilty pleas, and in 2011, 256, so almost exactly the same number there. That would actually represent a slight increase, considering that there was a 10% reduction in the total cases filed. There's basically an increase in the amount of guilty pleas that are being received as to those. And that's reflective both of the policy of the prosecutor as well as the court there. So what we are seeing, and that's pretty much what I expected that we would see, is that perhaps because of the season, perhaps because of the staffing increase at the PD, number of things, we're seeing the numbers go back up to look about like what we had last year at about the same time. So those numbers are coming up, and I would have expected that to happen. Now, one of the things that
Do you want to take? Okay, go ahead.
one of the things you asked for the last time was basically our open case report. And we ran it today, but I didn't get a chance to copy it. And I can share it with you, and I'd be happy to let you have this copy because we can print another. But let me just summarize what it says, and then I'll pass it around. We ran an open case report to show how many cases we have standing open right now. And we did it by year. So the aggregate number of total cases, a general offense, and that is adult and juvenile, what would be considered to be criminal violations or delinquency violations for someone under 18, is at 1,380. That includes current cases as well as cases that are open but on probation, open for collection purposes, open on warrants and something like that. Traffic, 3,795. Again, that's the total open cases in that category. And that is just traffic infractions and traffic offenses that would add to careless driving and those type of things, as opposed to the general offense. And then parking, 993. And that's something that is done through the court a little bit differently under our current system, because actually the court administrator sits as a parking referee to resolve those cases, and by and large those do not come through the court as a case unless someone's requesting a trial on those. So if you add those up, you're looking at approximately 6,000 cases that are currently open. Now we broke those down by years, and what we did is we went back to 2006, and I think the court administrator looked back to see if we had very many open prior to that date. We keep our warrants open, and we keep files available for a period of time. And on the older cases, if there's been no arrest on a warrant or no action on a case, those cases can and by and large are closed out after a certain period of time. We're looking at about 5 to 6 years here. If we go all the way back to 2006, of the almost 1,400 general offense cases that are open, there's only 84 that are from year 2006 or later, or I should say, or earlier, further back. Of the nearly 4,000 traffic, there's 241, and of the nearly 1,000 parking, there's none. So, and those numbers go up pretty much in every category. They get incrementally larger, with the one exception being when we get to 2011, because that is only a half-year numbers. Some of those numbers are a bit smaller than we would have had for a full year. For instance, the parking, we only have currently 188 2011 parking cases, whereas in 2010 we still have 429 left over from that. So I'll pass that around for people to look at and then think.
So Jim, and I'll look forward to seeing that. Just to kind of get to the interest, okay, there's 6,000 open in inventory.
Right.
How does that number compare to maybe what was there at year end? Do we have an idea?
I don't know. Did we run that number, Pat?
No, not at the year.
But we could.
Oh, yes,
We could do that, and now I have something to do for the next meeting.
Well, and where the question comes from is trying to essentially understand the inventory that's sitting there that's open. You know, is it getting bigger, getting smaller? You know, what's being done or can be done, and what should be kind of that expectation around that inventory that's sitting out there if that mix kind of changes. It's good to know that there's only, maybe about 325 of them that are from, I'll call them ancient,
Right.
More than 5 years ago. But the other is, what's the mix and how does that look like as far as that inventory, because that's possible yet work to be done.
Right. Part of that is going to be answered by the second thing that's on the agenda here today, and that is the discussion of collections agency for the court, because many of those cases are cases that are open solely for the purpose of collection of outstanding fines and costs and restitution. And if we have someone who's failed to do that and a warrant is sitting outstanding because of that, that case can sit open for collections, and basically we're in a posture of having to wait till the person gets arrested on the warrant with a new case or someplace else, or, as occasionally happens, comes in on their own. And we can resolve those numbers. So any of those, whether they're a traffic violation or even a general offense, because it could be a case where there was perhaps a suspended jail sentence or partially suspended fine, and the conditions for suspension didn't happen, the person picked up a new offense, didn't show up in court, something like this, and they will show us an outstanding warrant until we clear those cases. And it might simply be a collection issue. So that's one of the things that we're looking at to try to reduce that backlog of cases. And I would say if you look at those numbers, anything that's over about, I'd say if it's not 2010 or 2011, because we'd have 18 months there, our traditional jurisdiction as municipal court's a year. That is something that is probably a collections case or a warrant for noncompliance. And so the bulk of those filings are going to be that type of older case, aged case. And there's several factors that can reduce that number. One of them obviously is working with the collection agencies on those collection issues. One would be if we decided to, and I don't think the police department has gone in this direction, and very few do, maybe Denver, because they periodically at Christmas do their little sting with the free turkeys, to try to get people to come in on the warrants or to actually do a fugitive team to go out and try and arrest people on those outstanding warrants. That doesn't tend to be productive for law enforcement. My experience tells me over the last 25 years, occasionally you can do some of that. You'll see in the newspaper.
Some good press, though.
It does. You'll see in the newspaper sometimes they'll run the 30 or 40 most wanted, see if they can get some assistance from the community to get these people arrested. And occasionally we do get people arrested off those lists, and occasionally they sit there for a while. So there's various ways to do that. It hasn't been something because our jurisdiction as a municipal court doesn't bring in the murders and the sexual assaults and the child abuse type things. Those tend to be the ones where if it was the Arapahoe County Sheriff or Jeffco Sheriff, they would probably be going for your state offenders and probably not for your municipal ordinance violators. So that's probably not a real fertile area to try to reduce that number. I think it's probably doing a better job up front and doing a better job with collections that's going to reduce that number. So,
Jim, on warrants that are 5 or 6 years old, are they dismissed? Are they removed from the record? What happens with those really?
the ones that are older than that?
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm trying to institute, and again it comes from my background in working in the state system, is to have a annual review date for old warrants. And what we do there is pull all those cases. Maybe we'll go back and say, let's this year look at the oldest warrants that we have, anything from 2006 back. And you can see the numbers that's on there. We'll pull those cases out. I'll look at them. If it's something where there's an open case, maybe an arrest warrant was issued or a failure to appear for a trial or something else, we'd likely contact the city attorney and say, are these cases prosecutable? Do we still have the witnesses to go forward with these? If they say yes and they feel they want to leave those open, those are left open. If they say, well, after this period of time, the officer is no longer with the agency, the victim has moved, we can't proceed and prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt, then those warrants would likely be dismissed. The ones that are old collections warrants and things like that, I would look over and see if it makes sense to keep those open. And that's kind of a tricky area, because on the one hand, I don't want people to think, well, geez, if I can just lay low for long enough, and how long is long enough? They're going to dismiss it because they're going to consider this to be cold or just too aged. And depending upon what the warrant is, we have some warrants that when we did the review this last year of every warrant that we had, I looked at some and they were substantial amounts of restitution that were due, or they were bad actors that I said, I don't think that they should benefit simply from the fact that they were able to hide for a long enough period of time. And we've kept those open. Now, some of those could actually be cases where the offenders died. And then, obviously, they're never going to get arrested on that warrant. And at some point, we're going to have to decide, even if that's a bad actor, do we keep that warrant open? But we do work with the city attorneys to decide what to do with the aged warrants, to see if we can reduce those down. And at a certain point, some of those cases, even if they have not been prosecuted or if there's amounts that are due, particularly if it's just court costs and the like, as opposed to restitution, might get dismissed on those annual reviews.
And if they are dismissed, is it expunged from the record?
No.
It still has a record there that they weren't.
there's still a record of the arrest that's in the system, and it may show, and one of the things that I'm going to get to here, and I think I included in the packet, was the rules for expungement, and that was based on, I think, Councilmember Cole's question, or maybe it was the mayor's, at that last session. But there's a procedure you have to go through to get that expungement. What expungement means is that that record is sealed, and that there's no access to it for basically by anybody except for law enforcement. But if it's simply dismissed because of a time constraint type thing or discretion of the court, that record will still show when a criminal history run is done. Might not have a disposition, but it'll be there.
And Jim, the expungement is typically only up to the state level. Arrests, at least in my experience, because we do background checks for the broker-dealer, and once there's an arrest, it's always in the federal database, even if folks are working for that as expungement.
Well, that kind of depends on what the arrest is for. The FBI database, the CCIC database are separate, but things can be reported into both of those things. The state system has the authority to seal the municipal records, the Littleton Police records, for instance, the our court records, and the state court records, but I don't know that they have authority to seal the FBI records. And some arrests will have a Colorado Crime Information Center ID number and an FBI number as well. And if it goes to the FBI database, we're talking about different things. But the expungement is it's limited to a certain type of case. And when I go over that with you, it's a lot narrower than one might think. A lot of people come in and say, I'd like to seal the record I had for this case I got convicted of. And the answer to that generally is, well, you can't do that. That's not what it's for. Mm-hmm. So, and I will touch on that when we get to that. Was there anything else in terms of the numbers themselves?
Yeah, I guess, I was just, maybe you can go back to this, to the sort of the activity report. And I guess maybe refresh my memory, just since we are talking about more or less an apples to apples 6-month period, in theory, whatever would have been, the seasonal conditions roughly last year are the same as what they were experiencing this year. Why, again, did you feel that there was, what was the explanation for being down 35% in the first quarter, and even year-to-date through half year down 27% in terms of just filed complaints? What was causing this?
Again, that's not something that's in the control of the courts, because we get a certain amount of business that comes in. It's like saying for you guys, how come the votes for this last election were down?
Yeah, no,
and it's hard to exactly say what the reason for this, but I'm speculating that one of the things was that we had some officers that had left the police department, and one of them at least was one that was in the traffic division and wrote a substantial number of tickets.
Okay, so it's personnel turnover
issues. So that is one issue that it could be. If you have an experienced officer that is in traffic and he can write a lot of tickets because he's done it before, he knows the areas and he's experienced and has the skills to do that, and a new officer might be a little bit reluctant to stop or maybe a little bit more reluctant to write a ticket, might issue more warnings. For whatever reason, if that's what they do, then our numbers are going to go down because that's our intake.
Right.
There could be other ones that's based on seasonal things, just like the weather, events that we might have had here, whether or not our sports teams are doing well and people are sitting at home watching the games as opposed to being out. And there's just a lot of factors that we see that affect the number of gross filings that come in. So that's hard for me to tell because it's the one number over which I have absolutely no control.
And I completely understand that. I guess I was thinking more just given your knowledgeable opinion of having seen this kind of stuff over a period of time, if there were specific drivers, because then I guess maybe what I do is ask Phil and Jim, I mean, from your guys' standpoint, public safety is the main issue.
Sure. Yeah, and we talked with Chief Coogan about that, and I think Judge Anderson there was a vacancy in the traffic division.
Okay.
And so we're back up to speed in traffic. And I don't know, I only look at the money, so I don't look at the, I can tell you that we actually, if you go look in your 2011 budget, for all overall fines, we actually budgeted a 40% drop in fines this year. Based on the red light ticketing, because we had expected a dramatic drop off there. So I don't know if those red light tickets, Judge, are included in that actual traffic count, but, okay. But is it in the money?
No, it is
Well, then I need to go see, I need to take another look at the 2011 budget then, because it looked to me like we actually budgeted for a drop in fines. So we'll need to go take a look at that. But the judge is absolutely correct about we had a vacancy in the traffic division, so part of that'll pop back up.
Yeah, and I think it's important to basically point out, we consistently have said, and I think we honestly believe that the intent here is to enforce traffic laws for public health and safety. We clearly have to keep an eye on the money, so what you're describing is certainly an attribute of this, but there's no intent to have the police go on jihad and try to make up the difference either.
No.
So, for what?
Yeah, just a natural course of events, as the judge said.
Okay, understand.
And I think another issue that might be is the downturn in the economy sometimes. I mean, you have some areas that may go up, and I've seen certainly in the theft area that those offenses are probably on the rise, but there's other areas where the economy, I think, causes those to go down, and it just kind of depends on how that plays out. Significantly, the weather is something that my experience in the past showed we got snowstorms. We had a certain amount of people that stayed inside, including the criminals. And I don't know if you thought, well, geez, if I go and I rob a store, now I've got footprints in the snow they can follow, or if it was just it's too cold to go out and I'm going to stay inside. But we saw a certain amount of that, and I'm not kidding about sporting events. When the Broncos are doing good and people are out in the bars, we have more bar fights. We have more, when they're losing, we have more domestic violence incidences. And it does reflect, we've seen that, not just colloquially, but actual in terms of these events. So there are a lot of things that play in either directions. I think that the primary ones probably are economic as well as the staffing.
And I don't know if it's related or not, but one of my observations was, it's not a dominant set of numbers, but if we look at parking, it's just one of the criteria that's there. Parking's down over 40%, and if it's the economy, folks staying home, not parking, or what it may be.
Also, our parking enforcement officers had some illness issues. I'm sorry, you're pointing at somebody.
Debbie's been trying to speak.
Okay. I was answering Mr. Sherman.
No, I know. I just got your eye for a moment.
All right.
Okay, so part of it is the experience and the enforcement side.
Personnel.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Debbie?
A couple things. One is we have snow every year. We have 4 sports teams. They do good, they do bad, they play throughout the year. We have officers come and we have officers go. So while all of it may have some sort of contribution, it was pretty severe, 35% down. It's good to see that we're not continuing that trend, but I respect what you're saying, but I don't buy that all as, we'd have the same thing going on every single year. If it's 35% down, it's down from something. So it's down from the same year where there was snow and there was ball teams and there was officers coming and going. So I just think it's something that we need to continue to keep a close eye on. I agree with Bruce regarding the public safety. We don't want to have overzealous anything going on, and we don't want to have nothing going on too. Question on the council communication we got. There's an outstanding citations chart in here with numbers through the 2010 through 2006. What is the difference, and it's probably just me learning the verbiage of the courts, between the outstanding citations and the open case report? There's some of the numbers get pretty close to each other and others are pretty drastically far apart.
On that chart, we probably should have labeled that outstanding citations with outstanding balances, because not all of our citations have balances.
These are outstanding citations with outstanding balances?
Correct. Not all citations have fines and cost in the computer until the judge actually assesses them, or until the person comes in to pay. So that's why you have a big difference there.
Okay.
The other thing I'll just need to check on, Phil, maybe you can help me on this. Did we, as part of the 2011 cuts, did we cut the truck enforcement on
Yes.
Santa Fe?
We don't do that any longer.
Yeah, so that's another factor. We'll go track, we'll get hard data for you, Debbie, but I think I'm real comfortable with Judge Anderson. I think we may have cut truck enforcement and then we had an opening, but we can certainly monitor that closely for you.
And would you say again what you said on why the numbers are different?
The chart that is in the council communication says outstanding citations, and it probably should be labeled outstanding citations with outstanding balances.
So what that would mean is if there was a case that either was a new case, say a warrant was issued where we have assigned a case number to it or a summons number to it without an arrest, that would not show in the outstanding citations because there's no balance due for collection. If there was a case that was outstanding because there was a jail sentence that was imposed that was suspended on conditions and that person was non-compliant, that would not show either. These outstanding citations in the council memorandum are cases for which we have money that's due to be collected, so these numbers should in all categories be lower than the open case report.
Well, in 2010, you've got 472 outstanding citations with money, but you've only got 466 open cases. This versus...
Well, you'd have to add.
I think it's general offense.
Is this by year, ma'am?
This is what was outstanding as of May of this year.
And then what's this one, June?
So
Yeah, we just
this
ran
is
those.
So there may be a few things got resolved. Okay.
these numbers will change daily.
Okay.
Other questions about the numbers?
No, I just prefer to take the optimistic viewpoint that maybe people are behaving.
But, one of the things that also can be reflected here is as the public becomes more aware and as the public becomes contacted by law enforcement in general, they become more law-abiding. That's what I would hope would be the case, and that the numbers are reduced somewhat at that. That's maybe rose-colored glasses thinking, but...
Well, that's the whole presumption for the red light technology, isn't it?
It is, and actually my experience in talking to the red light people, I've had them come in both this jurisdiction as well as some others, and I think that the chief here talked about at some of these intersections, we've seen a dramatic reduction in the amount of accidents at the locations where the red lights have been put in. And I know that some cities, including Aurora, where I also work, they are increasing the number of red light cameras, including some for not just the left turns on the red, but the right turns on the red in high accident areas with an eye towards reducing those type of accidents there as well. And the experience so far has been positive. So I think we are seeing some reductions as people see the flashes go off, whether it's them and they get the ticket in the mail or not, that there's been some modification of behavior, and that's a good thing.
Well, our general trend, and I don't think I've looked at the offenses for the latest police report, but the general trend for the last 20-some years is a reduction in the violent and type 1 or type 2.
Type 1 and type 2, yeah.
Type 1 and type 2 offenses that we've seen. So it wouldn't be beyond reason to see a generalized reduction in other types of offenses either. Although I don't know that we would see a big drop that come down and then come back up. It seems a little unusual. Anything else on the courts?
I wanted to move forward to a couple of other issues before I turn it over to Pat, or we start to deal with the other issue. One is that there was a request at the last quarterly meeting in regards to the information for expungement or sealing of records. And we developed through consultation with some other people that I've worked with in the past, as well as our city attorney's office, information or advisement form that we are going to be giving out with all deferred judgment cases. And it explains the situations where the expungement applies and the procedures for doing it, although it's not done in our court, it's done in the district court. But and this kind of responds, I think, to Councilmember Cernet's question about sealing on the federal level. is that what can be sealed, and it's down on the first page at about halfway down, and it says, if you are arrested but not charged with a crime, you can seal that record. If you were acquitted or found not guilty on all charges, you can get that record sealed. If you successfully completed a deferred judgment, which I think was what Councilmember Cole was bringing up that the constituent talked to her about, or case of charges against you were completely dismissed. Significantly, what is not there are cases where there's either been a guilty finding or a guilty plea, even to a lesser charge. And a lot of people come into court and have for years and say, I've got this old record where I got this conviction, can I get that sealed? And the answer to that always was no, that you couldn't. The General Assembly modified this. If you look on the back, the first bullet point, they now have added a different area of the expungement for convictions or guilty pleas to certain controlled substance or illegal drug charges, simple possession charges. The only thing that might apply here, and I'm not sure if the city attorney has an opinion on this, would be our simple possession of marijuana. I think that would be the only thing that would apply. Other than that, nothing where there is a guilty plea or conviction can be sealed. Now, the idea of the deferred judgment is that you enter the guilty plea, it's never accepted, a conviction does not enter, it's held in abeyance. And if at the end of the year period or 6-month period, whatever the agreement was, everything's been met, then that guilty plea is withdrawn and the case is closed, and then that can be sealed.
But they would have to know to seal it.
Yeah, I have to know, and that's why we're going to give them this.
Yeah, I got an email from some lady that had a deferred judgment in Arapahoe County, and it was a district court thing, and she didn't realize that with a deferred judgment, it still appears on your record unless you go and expunge it or do whatever else it is that's here.
And interestingly, that is exactly the court that they would go to get it sealed.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you can't get it done in our court. That is exactly the court that does this, and the petition is filed there. We actually give them the website address where they can get all the information, and they can actually do it on their own, although it's some kind of complicated procedure to get that done. It requires service of the police agency and any record holder to be able to be notified that they have a right to object and all this. But we've laid out here, and so that people will have this if they want to, they can pursue it, and they're on notice of how to get that done. So hopefully, at least from our case, particularly for judgments, if people want to proceed and get that done, they can get that done. And so we did develop that sheet in response to the question, and that's moving forward on that.
And one suggestion on any forms, you may want to put a date somewhere on it, just in case the laws change, so that we know when it would be there.
We can probably just add it to the bottom of the revision 2011, something like that.
And I did have a suggestion for rewording one sentence. It's just turning some words around a little bit. You can decide. And there's an extra open parenthesis up there, too. The reason I suggested it is I kept tripping over it myself, and I thought if I did, maybe some other people would.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the quarterly update? Bruce?
I just was going to ask you guys maybe to, just now you've had a full year of operational activity and just sort of your collective views to how process flow is going and working with other departments and pros and cons, are there things, what's been working well, what things are out there maybe that still need to be addressed in terms of process flow?
Well, I think I told you the last time that I had identified about 15 or so areas that I wanted to deal with. Some of those had to do with procedures within the court, documents and procedures like that, and then some had to deal with working with the police department, for instance, working with the city attorney's office. Some had to working with our community service provider, and I think we've addressed all of those areas, and I think that by and large those relationships are good, and the working relationship is good. We obviously had to replace one of them that was our vendor for community service provision. That has been much improved. Here, only good things about that. We added a staff position for the DV probation officer. That has been very effective, I think very positive. We added some, a staff, additional relief judge, and he's been in a couple times, and I've already had positive feedback about him. So those type of things, I think, are we're working both within the department and relationships, I think, are much better. We're always trying to refine stuff, always trying to move forward and identify things. There's still some outstanding ones, and I had identified some issues as long-term issues. One of them was the courthouse security. I thought, well, it'll be a while before we can really touch that. And the city manager's office had a intern starting this past couple months, and he came out and actually did a report that's been provided to them with consultation with us and our existing security, making a lot of recommendations, things that I didn't even think of, and that's been moving forward. Another one was the computer software, which I thought was kind of something we deal with down the road. And again, we've had the IT people be able to come in and consult with us, met with them just this past week on moving forward as we do updates in that to try to make that more user-friendly and information sharing friendly as well. That's something I didn't anticipate having for some time, and we're getting these things done sooner than I expected, but I'm pleased to be able to say that that's worked well. We've done some other things. One of them is the next topic, and that's the court collection procedures. I think that of the issues that I'd identified, I had 9 of them that were completed when I met with you. After the first quarter, we've completed another 7 issues that I wanted to, and we have, looks like 4 that we're in the process of working with now. So that, I think, has worked out well. It's not perfect, but I think we have improved the situation quickly, and I think that there's a good working relationship with the other agencies that are involved here, and I can pick up the phone and feel that I can call pretty much anybody that we work with and have a colleague on the other end of the phone and someone that will partner with fixing an issue if it needs to be fixed.
We recently selected someone as a court assistant who will be running files from the city attorney's office to the court and from the court to the clerk's office, and she will also pull the files as the people check in, and that will relieve the city attorney's office from having to do some of that running for us, and also it will allow our security guard to do more security than running files.
Judge, quick question on, now you've got the 4 judges, right? How's everything going with scheduling? Everybody's feeling good about it? And
I think in the month of June, we actually had all 4 of us working on various days. And I think in this next month, we scheduled for August, and I think 3 of the 4 are. So that is working out, I think. We had a judges meeting in the beginning of June. You remember I told you we had started a court advisory committee meeting. We also have an independent judges meeting. We met just as the judges, along with the court administrator, during the last summer when we had no presiding judge. I wanted to kind of start that up again and try to find a regular basis that's going to work to update people. I think I had an agenda of about a dozen things, and some of it was repeat, but I thought it was a good idea to go over some of those forms that were new and some of the processes, just so that people were up to speed, and also because Judge Vigil was new and hadn't been exposed to any of that stuff. And I thought that was very helpful. I think that right now our staffing in terms of the judges is probably about where we need it to be. In terms of our court staff itself, we still haven't been fully, although we have the positions for various different reasons. One of our clerks adopted a child that was kind of a surprise. We had one clerk that was on maternity leave for all. We never really were fully up to speed. I think that we're about to be fully, maybe this month, be actually fully staffed for the first time in about a year.
Yeah. Yes, but we do have one that may be resigning, so we will be back shorthanded again.
Well,
if that happens.
She's moving for personal reasons.
Pardon?
Right? Personal reasons, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think she's moving back to a state she was from before. So. But that I'll be really glad to see that. I think that'll really help in terms of getting the procedures flowing and having the necessary people so that there's not delays in what the public, the time that they spend there, and that they can be addressed more easily by phone or something like that.
I just had one other comment related to process. The schedule that you send out, you send it to Bruce,
Right.
kind of, I don't know if it's possible, but you can send that just all council on the email, and I just assume get it direct from the judge. No, I mean, no problem getting it from Bruce. It just seems to me, process-wise, it'd be a little bit cleaner.
I'd be happy to do that because I can just add it as a group in my email.
It's on-
and it'll just go out.
it's in
Already
the-
listed as all city council.
Yeah, you,
Through the.
Littleton
it's-
site.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem. I'll do that the next time. And I guess the next item then is the collections agency, and you did get the council communication in regards to that.
Yes, we've been looking at possibly the feasibility of having a collection agency to collect any of the unpaid fines and to collect on default judgments. We were looking at their ability to provide the service, their cost, and their experience. Currently, we have a lot of defendants that come in and they can't pay. The judge will normally give them an extended period of time to pay. Some pay, but a majority of them don't. We normally try to send out a late notice or a court setting date to remind them that they have to pay. If they don't pay, they need to appear on that court date and ask the judge for more time. Probably, I would say about 50% of those do not show up to get an extended period of time to pay. On the default judgments, there are new tickets that are issued that are traffic infractions. We have quite a few people that do not respond to those. We send out courtesy notices giving them an additional 10 days to pay if they've not received a plea bargain in the mail. And we have quite a few defaults that are issued. And on those defaults, the judge will review those and he will add the fines and costs to those cases. So those cases could actually go to the collection agency. And it looks like we have about $65,000 just for 2010 that would be collectible. But the main reason is not the revenue, but to get these cases processed, get them closed out of the system. Right now on parking citations, when the citation is issued, the defendant is given 20 days to pay. If they don't pay, we send a late notice giving them an additional 10 days to pay. If they don't pay, basically that ticket will sit there for a year, and then after the year we review and decide whether they should be dismissed, because we have no other way of contacting or getting additional information on the registered owner. I think a collection agency may have more resources than we do to track these people down.
on question on parking, a number of cities, once you get a certain number of tickets, will boot. Do we boot?
We don't boot, but we do have the ability to put them on a tow list. And we do put them on the tow list, but that has not been too effective.
And is the boot, is that something that would come out of your office, or would that be, that I would imagine that doesn't come out of the police?
Well, we would probably have to purchase the boot. The police department or someone else would have to be responsible for booting the vehicle, and I don't know who that would be.
You'd have to purchase some kind of device for the traffic enforcement guy to carry, or girl to carry around, so that they know that the car that they're writing the ticket for has multiple outstanding tickets, because right now we don't have that. Otherwise,
Well, and the
they don't have
cars move around too. I mean, that doesn't mean they're always in Littleton. They could just be,
Oh, yes,
yeah, okay.
definitely move around. On the process for collection on traffic infractions at this point, as when the ticket is issued, the defendant is given 30 days to either pay or appear on the court date. If the defendant does not respond, a default judgment is entered, which the default is sent to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they will put a hold on that person's driver's license and they will send a notice of cancellation. And that's when a lot of people will respond, but we still have a lot that still ignore that. We had a lady come in and she was driving with her license canceled for quite a while. The process for collection on traffic violations is basically the same. The defendant is given 30 days from the date of the violation to respond, or they're giving a court date. If they fail to respond or fail to appear on the review date, then the case is turned over to the judge to review for a warrant or whatever other action he wants to take. The general offense collections, those cases go through the court. So if they don't pay on the court date, then the judge will give them additional time to pay. If they don't pay, then the case is again turned over to the judge for issuance of a warrant. Or the judge will order a notification sent to the defendant to appear in court, explain why it wasn't paid on time. So we still have a lot of outstanding fines out there, and we thought the collection agency would be a good process for us to try to get some of these cases processed and closed.
Questions for Pat? Jim?
This actually is for Kirsten. As a home rule city, do we have any other powers for collecting these outstanding defaults other than going to a collection agency?
Not that I'm aware of. We do have to do this by ordinance. So there'd have to be a legislative process before we could do it.
I mean, we could send our police out to try and collect them, but I'm not sure that that would be cost effective.
Well, not, you've got $20,000 worth of defaults for, it doesn't pay much of a salary.
That's what I mean, so. And what do the collection agencies get? Are they getting, do they get 25% of
Yes.
what they collect? Is that the
That's
deal?
the ballpark figure most of. That's the maximum I believe we can collect is 25, is that correct?
It can't exceed 25%, that's correct.
The collection agencies take.
Right.
There are some collection agencies that are a little lower. There are some collection agencies that charge a flat fee.
You have some, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, you were going to do an RFP process, I think, is what I was getting from this, to basically try to figure out who has the most experience and who's best equipped to perform at a high level.
Yes.
I assume there's a lot of these agencies out there.
Yes, there were quite a few. We did get 6 RFPs to review.
Or you've already got it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me ask, I guess, just sort of a numbers question. If you take the average approximate outstanding balance, fines have not yet been assessed. Well, maybe the explanation is in your footnote, but if you just take the average dollars on these things, if you take parking is $19,500 divided by 666 outstanding citations, it's about $30 on average.
Yes, anywhere from 25 to 50.
Okay, but
The 25 is a normal fine for a
Yeah.
parking ticket, and then once that late to notice is sent
Yep.
out, the fine is doubled.
So that makes
that's-
sense to me, but what I'm curious about is the traffic is an average of about $20, and I would assume these are all moving violations that would be higher priced offenses. In other words, $5,960 divided by 300 outstanding citations is only $20, 19 actually.
And normally, the traffic averages back in 2010 was like $88.
Yeah, I would assume they'd be a lot higher.
There are some that are lower because maybe they've made partial payments and they're out there, or the fine was lower than the 88. So
Okay.
I can can certainly double check that figure.
It's just as a curiosity, it doesn't seem to, it's a trend that I wouldn't have expected. If it's legitimate, it is what it is. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the collection issue, which sounds promising. How many municipalities around us, are there many that do this or not, do none do it?
There are quite a few that use, that's in that memo, there's quite a few municipalities that do
Did I not read that? Okay. Oh, right.
use collection agencies. And there are some counties also.
Okay, so Centennial does. You're right, I skipped over that. Okay. Good, thanks.
So it says in that same paragraph, on average, most agencies recover approximately 50% on accounts. Why so little?
It's possible, especially on parking tickets, it's a little bit more difficult to track down registered owners of vehicles. We don't have date of births on those people. They move around quite a bit. They don't re-register their vehicle to their new address.
Okay.
They're getting 25% and it's a smaller amount, then collection agency's probably going to concentrate on a bigger take.
Then a question for our attorney. When we did the decriminalize the library overdue stuff, we sent this to collection agency as a way to deal with that. And then if somebody doesn't pay, then their credit can get dinged, right? They can get bad credit rating. So is there a way, even though this is criminal, is there a way also to allow the credit, the person's credit to be affected?
You mean have the city report to a credit agency? Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, wouldn't the collection agency, if it can't collect the money like they do at the library, can they?
Well, I know there's a process built into that with collections. I mean, we do it in, I think, EMS, right? But I don't know. That would be a policy issue if you want to do that.
No, so I mean, potentially we could if we did this and saw it wasn't getting the results we wanted.
I guess you could, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
When we were, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Bruce got me, pulled out my calculator, Bruce. Well, look at these, and we've got approximate outstanding balances on defaults, it's under 20,000 almost, so call it 20. Collection agencies have a 50% success rate. We pay them 25% of what they collect. And if, we're looking at not a lot of money. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of having, if I don't have a problem collecting money from people who owe us money, but I just don't
Well, I think
see a whole lot outstanding.
But I think, don't you have to add, if you add the 19.5, the 59.60, and the 23.367, right? And then add, and that's whatever that is, 50,000 and something.
Probably look about 65,000.
Yeah, and then if you add, so you're at about 65. I added it all up. I came up with 70,000, but anyway. So
The other piece of it is, if you're doing this with a collection agency, you're being much more efficient with staff time, because there's a lot of staff time that has been involved in the past. So we're paying that. We know we're often challenged for the staff to be able to do stuff. So this will free up time to be able to provide better service in other ways.
Correct. And one of the issues here is also some of this money, some of this is restitution that's due to other people for damage of property or vehicles. So that's included in there. And then the collection fee that is charged will be on top of what the people owe the court. So it's not really going to cost us.
Well, so it's not netted out, it's, they had it on.
Yes, they added.
So if we get,
So if you had 65 or 70,000 and they got half of it, we'd get 35,000.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
plus
And then-
they have to pay
that's in the middle.
45% of 35,000.
Well, I relied on you to read it.
For the collection agency.
Yeah, but we don't pay.
No, we don't. It's fully funded, paid by the person that owes the amount.
Well, but I think the real motivation is it closes out all those outstanding cases that we have that go back for multiple years. So it's really a question of efficiency, getting the cases done, getting the restitution back, if that's possible.
The crazy part of the problem that we have is that I might have a case, and typically you talked about these smaller fine cases, where I might have a $50 fine, $15 in court costs, and the $5 victim assistance surcharge that applies, so we have a $70 outstanding balance. And a person they'll say, I can't pay it right now, can I have some time? And I'll give them 30 days, for instance. And then they sign a notice that says, I'll pay by this date, or I'll appear in court, basically to explain why there's a problem or to ask for additional time. And those are the ones where they tend not to come in. So now we've set a court date, so we've taken time off for the whole staff to set it up. Now I have to make a decision, do I issue a warrant for that? And I really don't want to have to issue a warrant for those things. So many times then I'll say, send out a show cause notice, a letter to them to show cause, to come into court, give them another court date to see if they can explain why they need more time. Sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't. If they do, they generally want another hearing with additional time, and pretty soon that $70 we're collecting is more than overwhelmed by the amount of time that our clerks are spending on that they could be doing, dealing with the people that are there, that are coming in like they're supposed to and resolving their cases and moving on. And so there's a tremendous amount of time and effort that's being taken up by some of these cases that have, as you pointed out, a $20 average balance. And I think that this will certainly free up the staff and the court time to be able to handle those other things if we can not have to have those people coming into court as regularly as they have been.
It seems like there's an equity issue too, all the other ones that do comply and get out their checkbook and, pay. I mean, just sort of a fairness issue to all the citizens who kind of take their, their medicine and pay up.
Well, is there any objection to going forward with this? Then I think the next step is you'll bring us an ordinance
That's right.
that allows us to do this.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd ask is to do some research, whether reporting unpaid balances after a certain period of time, even after it's gone through the collection agency, as we've done with the library, reporting that to so that the credit report is impacted, leaves something out there that they'll get reminded if they ever want to clean up their credit report at some point in time.
And if we do this, will these long-standing ones also get into the pipeline for the credit agency?
The warrants?
Yeah.
Yes, they will. However, if someone is arrested on a warrant, either from another jurisdiction or our own police department, then the collection agency would not get that fee.
Right. No, I'm just.
But yes, they would be included.
I'm particularly eager to get some of the back ones that might involve restitution for people. I mean,
Right.
the people broke into my house was so long ago, we won't be on this list, but I appreciate how much that lingers for a person when
Right.
when their court orders restitution and you don't get it.
Exactly.
And Pat, just a quick question is, in this outstanding citations chart that's here, in looking at those outstanding balances, is that based on the year of infraction or court element that is it cumulative? Do I have to add them all together to get a full total?
Correct, because those balances are what were outstanding in that year. And like I said, these amounts will change from day to day.
Yeah, but there's still, this was a rough in May, the total of what was outstanding aggregate just by the year of infraction is how it's built out. Because this is if there's about 113,000 is the total amount that's outstanding.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move that City Council convene an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402.4, subsection E, to develop negotiating positions or instruct negotiators.
Second.
Been moved and second to go into executive session for negotiations. Jim?
Well, unless somebody's got more information than I've been provided, I think it's premature to do this. We don't have the information we need, I think, to go forward.
The reason I'm asking for the exec is I spoke with City Manager Jim Woods this afternoon, and he indicated that they are looking for direction from council on how to proceed with negotiations. So unless council is willing to give them some direction, then there's no movement.
And if you voted no, we'd get out at 8:05, so that would just be wrong.
Oh, yeah. Fair point.
Okay. Any other discussion? Council ready to vote? It takes 5 votes. All in favor, raise your hands. Opposed? All right. Passes 6-1 with Jim opposing. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Are we
For
going
the
to
record, do we need a motion to bring the ordinance? Do we have that in the record?
Bruce, did you second?
I think Phil did.
Phil seconded. No is unanimous consent, which is a motion.
Well,
All
as
or
long,
none.
will that be in the minutes?
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can want to say that?
It's going to come back as a first reading anyway.
are we going
So we
to
can put it in as unanimous consent.
Who do we need in the exec session?
reconvene
Just
next door?
The exec would be
Bill and
Jim,
Kirsten.
Bill, and Kirsten.
And we will not be reconvening after the exec session. We will not take any action after the exec session. So this will terminate our television coverage for tonight.